What is school for? You can call me dumb, but I spent 16 years attending school and I'm still clueless about its purpose. After graduation, I was unable to do my taxes, buy a house, or even apply for a loan. I was unaware of investing, establishing credit, or finding employment. Despite being a top graduate, all I ended up was with a diploma, and I'm stuck at home with my mother. Our education system, while it has its merits, is failing our youth in many ways. We're teaching them how to pass tests and memorize facts, but we're not teaching them how to live in the world as responsible adults. I don't mean to sound ungrateful, but I must admit that while I was taught some valuable lessons in school, such as factoring trinomials and the function of mitochondria, the truth is that most of the information it taught me has slipped from my memory. Despite the occasional usefulness of the Pythagorean theorem, I can't really say that I retained much of what was taught to me during many years in school. Hey mom, do you remember when you need to ask me what I learned in school today? I always used to say not much, but the truth is, I had already forgotten most of what was taught. And it's not just me. Millions of students feel the same way. Do you remember how we used to avoid making eye contact with the teacher or being called on? We were afraid of being wrong, which proves the school isn't really about learning or building up our intellect. It's more of like a game we play to get good grades and collect as many A's as possible. But what do you expect when the most common question in class is, will this be on a test? Will this material be included in the evaluation? If schools place greater emphasis on genuine learning as opposed to testing and memorization, then the letter F would be assigned to find another answer rather than failure. If schools were genuinely interested in our individual and academic success, students would have more free time, fewer restrictions, and much less homework. This conclusion isn't just my own personal view. It's been verified and scientifically proven. If any instructor has doubts about the sources, they are free to pursue my works cited page, which I meticulously compiled in MLA format, knowing it's the only one that you'll recognize. I don't mean to sound slow, but seriously, why put students through so much pain? Instead of assigning extra work like an additional essay, reading hundreds of pages, or doing countless problems on a worksheet, let them get some extra sleep. It's not only pointless torture, but it's also foolish to pile on so much work without teaching them the skills to manage their time effectively. You know, schools have this system where we're told when to start and end classes with bells. The classrooms have this prison-like atmosphere, and we even need to ask permission to use the bathroom, and sometimes teacher would ask pointless questions about it. They keep telling us to use our time wisely, but how can we when we're stuck for 6 hours in what we call school? Which is probably the worst example of time management ever. Consider this. This conventional way of teaching is downright ridiculous. In fact, it's completely pointless multiplied by the square root of moronic. They simply stuff your brain with facts, making you feel like you're being force-fed. Then you regurgitate it all onto the exam. That's not education, that's like having bulimia. And the more you do it, the better you'll do on tests. It's not surprising that so many students graduate feeling mentally and emotionally malnourished. Similarly, we never learn about practical life skills like cooking, budgeting, or time management. We were expected to figure those things out on our own, but it's not always that simple. I know many people who struggle with these basic skills well into adulthood, simply because they never thought. And then there's the issue of diversity and inclusion. When I was in school, we never talked about race, gender, or sexuality. We never learned about different cultures or perspectives, and as a result, many of us were ignorant or even prejudiced. It wasn't until later in life that I realized how limited my worldview has been. Of course, there are some schools and teachers who are doing a fantastic job of addressing these issues, but they are often the exception, not the rule. Our education system as a whole needs to do better if we want to prepare our youth for the challenges of the world. You know, school is all about memorizing dots, but real education should be about connecting the dots, like fishing. True education teaches you how to catch a fish. But in school, they're like, yeah, you caught the fish, but where's the proof? It's like they don't even care. Might as well just throw it back. I mean, seriously, what's the point of school? Let's get real, it's not like we're actually getting educated here. If you still believe that, you must be living in another world. You must be living in another world. The term education comes from the Latin word edus, which means to bring out and develop a person's potential. But let's face it, school isn't doing much of that. All it's doing is stuffing more information inside our heads. Look, I get it. Some things in school make sense, like reading, writing, and math. But seriously, are we saying that studying rocks is more important than learning how to take care of ourselves? Suicide is a major issue for young people, and studies have shown that emotional health and self-control are critical for success. So why aren't we learning skills like handling stress, dealing with bullies and rejection, and coping with anxiety and depression? I mean, I don't even know how to cook, and I'm surprised I'm still alive. Sure, I can list every battle of the Civil War, but seriously, what the heck is school really for? There are those who argue that success is linked to attending school, but we don't dispute that claim. However, let's consider some examples of successful people who don't complete their education. Have you ever used a MacBook or iPhone? Both were invented by a person who dropped out of school. What about Facebook or YouTube? Created by dropouts too. The same goes for Snapchat, WhatsApp, and even Whole Foods. And although he's not a dropout, Ingvar Kamprad, the founder of IKEA, never even attended school. So it's clear that education isn't the only path to success. You may be thinking that I'm just picking and choosing examples that there are millions of people who didn't go to school and aren't successful. And you're right. But if you look at history, you'll find that some of the most successful people never had formal education. George Washington, Abe Lincoln, Ben Franklin, Thomas Edison, Ernest Hemingway, Mark Twain, Teddy Roosevelt, and Margaret Mead are just a few examples. I'm not suggesting that you drop out of school, because some schools and teachers are exceptional. But there's a difference between being smart and scoring well on tests. Your future is not something that can be measured by a test like a SAT, or ACT. Your destiny is in your hands, and you have the power to shape it to be great. So don't expect school to open doors for you, because it's more likely to slam them in your face. So what can we do about it? For starters, we can start talking about these issues more openly. We need to have honest conversations about mental health, life skills, and diversity. And we need to make sure that everyone feels heard and included. We can also start advocating for change within the education system. We need to push for more fundings for schools and teacher trainings on these important issues. We need to support organizations that are working to improve our education system. And we need to hold our elected officials accountable for making education a priority. But most importantly, we need to remember that education is not just something that happens in a classroom. Learning is a lifelong process, and we need to be constantly seeking out new knowledge and experiences. We need to be open to different perspectives, and we need to be willing to learn from our mistakes. In the end, I still don't know what school is for, but I do know that education is essential for our personal and collective growth. It's up to us to make sure that we're getting the education we need, whether that's through formal schooling or life experience. We owe it to ourselves and to future generations to make sure that we're constantly learning and growing. I can't help but ponder on the opportunities lost and the untapped potential in our education system. If it weren't for my love of music and YouTube, I could have easily been another failed statistic. Picture this: a child sitting at the back of a classroom in a small town. This child struggles to keep up and often fails, but deep down there is a passion waiting to be ignited. With the right guidance and support, this passion can lead to discovering the cure for cancer. Unfortunately, I fear this child's gift may go unnoticed, but they may never reach their potential because they are solely judged by their academic performance. So, to all teachers, principals, parents, advisors, and students, I must ask again, what is school for?